Hey everybody, this is Jose Blasco. We are about to get started in just a little bit. Sound check, as always, a quick message on the chat box would be appreciated so I know you hear me well. Should be good, but it's always a good confirmation before we start the session. So please go ahead and type a quick hello or anything else you'd like, and that way we can start on time. Thank you so much. I'll just be waiting here for 20 plus seconds and we begin. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you very much, Joe. Everyone, my friends, thank you so much for joining me today and for the confirmation. 5 seconds to go. Here we go. Top of the hour. Time to get started. Welcome, everybody. This is March 6, 2022. My name is Jose Blasco. This is top session. So we're going to be talking about top. Before we get started, a quick highlight of the disclaimer on the upper left side of the screen. Please read it carefully. As always, as you probably know, it is important information. It is also fairly short, so I am counting on you to read it completely. That's what I'm suggesting very strongly to do, because it is indeed very important. Also, what is a top session? If you're new to the session, well, it's a session where we talk about the platform top, the Traditive Options Planner. So we talk about how to use it, how to accommodate the various functionalities to your trading style, your trading rules, understanding better the platform, which often leads us into some sort of trading lectures as well, because sometimes we cannot separate trading from the use of technology, and it's very related, and sometimes we have a little bit of a mix between the two. Questions and answers, of course, they are welcome anytime during the session, so please do that. Be engaged, do not be shy. Remember, this is a private room. It's only between us, and therefore any question you may have about your trades, about your trading style, about the use of top, about whatever it is, make sure you understand I'm here to help you. Just like all my other colleagues, we are really committed to your development, and feel free to use that and do not be shy. Very good. So let's begin with the session. Quick highlight as well, as always, so you can see the specific link I am using here, tradewithufos/Jose. What is that link about? Well, that link is the one you use to get to the questions page. The questions page is a place where you can search for answers by typing your questions, but you can also post new questions if your answers are not found. You can certainly click on the green button. You have to log in first, and then from there you can post questions. Anyone could post questions as well as access the results. You just need to be registered on the website. Therefore, at the minimum, you need to be a Trade with UFO member, which is the free membership on our website that everybody can get, and that gives you access to the question page. Very good. So now that you know, time to jump in the platform. Here we go. Here's top. So what do we have? Okay. Move to a daily time frame, for example. But to be honest, it doesn't matter, because today the plan when it comes to the use of top is to really focus on the matrix. Okay, this is what we discussed in the last session. You guys told me that this is the tool that probably is the most important to you at this moment in time, for you to understand better how it works, the different functions, the different possibilities. And therefore, we're going to start with understanding better this tool. Christian, it's good to see you, my friend. Jeff, is very good to see you as well. Thank you for joining me. It's always a happy moment when we get together, but when I see you guys joining me on the Sunday, instead of watching this recorded and you're attending live, it tells me a lot about your passion for trading, and I really appreciate that. So thanks for that, my friends. Anyway, so the matrix. Okay, so let's talk about the matrix. We're gonna have to use multiple sessions to discuss the matrix properly. There is so much to talk about the matrix, so we'll have to use more than one session. But let's begin with explaining or defining what's the matrix. Okay, so if I zoom in, it's kind of like a tool that looks like a little bit like, let's call it a spreadsheet if you wish, where on the top there are some drop-down menus. And what is all of that for? Well, basically the matrix is a scanning tool. It's a tool that allows us to scan the markets screen for very specific market conditions and basically return a list of symbols, which typically what you would do then is you would basically link the matrix results with one of the colors, for example blue, with your charts, and therefore let's say this is the list that you got out of the filtering conditions that you set on the matrix. So when you click on the symbol, for example oxy in this case, so automatically this would load your charts, and now you are ready to go and plan a trade and do whatever it is that you have to do. Okay. So the key is to really set up this tool in a way that is compatible and in line with your trading plan. So whatever results you get from the matrix are putting you in a position where you're ready to trade. Okay, that's the idea. Also, something important to know about the matrix is that all the processes that are running to identify those potential market opportunities based on a series of conditions, all of those processes are not running on your computer locally. They are running on the cloud. So while Top is a platform that is an installable piece of software that runs on your computer, many of the services, and definitely the matrix, it's not running in your computer, it's running on the cloud in very powerful servers. So the moment you set up some sort of a filtering condition, no matter what that is, the time is going to take for the results to populate, it's basically nothing. It's going to be speed of the light. And this is very important, not only because of the convenience of not having to wait, it's also very important because some of the scans, for example, if I scan for, instead of all symbols or stocks, I scan for all option symbols. So here, to be honest, the amount of options contracts that exist in the US markets it's millions, because we have thousands of stocks in the US market, close to 10,000. And the majority of those stocks got options. And they got multiple expiration series. And for every expiration series, they got multiple strikes. And for every strike, they have calls and puts. And when you add it all together, it's millions of scannable or screenable items. And the matrix is going to take care of all of it, not only underlying symbols, but also option symbols if you choose to. So in other words, if we had that running on a local computer, well, forget about it. It would take an infinity of time to download all the data and then an infinity of time to process all the data. So we are running all of that on the server side to be very efficient. Okay, so keep that in mind because it's a very important aspect of the matrix. So the matrix has multiple sections that are important to understand when it comes to start inputting your preferences when looking for those market opportunities. Notice how let me maximize this so it's going to be better. So notice on the upper part, we have two drop-down menus for scan. Okay. Then we have a collection of parameters, which are basic parameters that could be added as an additional filter. Okay. So we have scanning ideas, if you wish. Then those scanning ideas could be filtered out deeper based on those basic parameters. And beyond those basic parameters, we have these additional filters where if I click on the little arrow pointing down button, so if I click on that, this opens up another collection of tabs with additional items which I could set up based on my preferences and filter out even more the results coming from the scans that are already filtered by those basic parameters. So now I'm filtering them again out of more advanced parameters. And basically what this will do, I can just do something random here. So you see, so I'm just picking one type of scan together with one type of scan. Well, actually, I guess I was. Okay, let me, instead of so much of a limiting type of scan that I selected, let's do this. And then I'll do this, for example, something like that. So if I was to do that, I believe I should have a list of symbols. Here we go. Here's my list of symbols. So now I can add additional conditions based on those basic parameters, for example, the minimum price, or maybe I only want to trade stocks which are at least $20 per share. So if I do that and I click scan again, my list is going to be shorter because now all those stocks, you can see the last column price here, it's all $20 or more. So you get what you get from the scan. It's kind of like going from top to bottom. So whatever you get from the scans is then filtered out deeper based on those basic parameters. And then with the additional filters, you can filter that out even more. For example, I only want stocks that are in a strong group. And now when I scan, let's see if I get something. So you can see how the list now is even shorter. So the idea is that now this is your tradable list of stocks because this is linked with appropriate color that is equivalent to the one you have on your charts. So now you can just go ahead and click, and automatically, as you can see, the charts on the background are now changing to that symbol, and now you will be ready to move into that particular chart and the trade, set entries, targets, stops, whatever you do, the option strategy you want to use, and go ahead and trade. Okay, so again, this is designed to save you time in that process, and you may want to think about it like you're going from top to bottom. Okay. Apart from that, once you have created all those particular results, so there are options for you to save such results. Okay, you can save those results to a scan list. You can save it to a spreadsheet file. You can save it to a text file. You can also save it to a list file, which we'll talk about this in another session if you don't mind, because this is quite simple, and to be honest, while many of you may use the saving functionality of the matrix, I believe that the majority of users would probably save the page where the matrix is. So for example, if I close this matrix and I look at and I click on the window menu, the window menu is showing me what I have on my page. Okay, and this brings me back to the very first top session we ever did that talked about what is a top page. So I believe that all of you know that, right? So basically, the top page is a container where whatever you save is whatever you have in whatever monitor, in whatever place on your computer that is open, that's being saved. So here, apart from two charts, which you could see, they are in front of us, right? Chart on the left, chart on the right. Okay, apart from two charts, I also have a matrix, which you don't see. And the reason why you don't see is because it's behind my charts. And if I click on it, now you can see it's bringing back to the top, if you wish. And now I can see it. Okay. So the way I have it set up, as you can see, it's one of my preferences, especially when using one monitor only. So, which is what I do when I'm running the live sessions. When I trade, I have different setups. But to share my screen, I try to position things in one screen so it's convenient. So in this case, notice that all the real estate that is needed on the upper part of the matrix is visible. Okay, and of course, the result will also be visible, and that matrix is linked, right? So basically, the way I have it set up is, I could click on the results, in this case, CPB. Okay, I get to see the chart on the left, which is my larger time frame, get to assess if I'm happy with what I see based on my trading plan. And if I'm not happy, I will go for the next symbol and the next and the next and the next until I'm happy, meaning it meets my rules. And if it meets my rules and I'm ready to go deeper to plan the trade, so then I will click on the chart on the right, which basically this now hides the matrix, okay? But even though the matrix is not visible anymore, I know I can always go back to it by going back to my window menu and click on the matrix, and it comes back. And now I can go for the next symbol. So this is kind of like how I have it set up. So if you have it set up in this manner, and I'm going to show you an alternative in a moment, if you have it set up in this manner and you save, right? You save your page, okay? You save the page. So basically, not only you are saving the fact that a matrix is inside your page, but whatever results you got, whatever filtering conditions you got on the top will also be saved as you save the page, because the page saves the matrix, and whatever is in the matrix is saved when you save the page. Okay, so this is probably a much easier way on how to get your market research done in a way that is more efficient. You can even save multiple matrices. You can have, let's say you have, a set of filtering conditions for directional trading to go long, a set of filtering conditions to go short and a set of filtering conditions for non-directional trading. So maybe you have three matrix, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, maybe you have three matrix. Okay, here are your three matrix. And when you save the page, the three matrix are being saved. Each of them would have different scanning conditions, one for directional long, one for directional short, one for non-directional. I'm just saying that could be your case. And then all of it would be saved when you save the page. So in other words, in this case, you would not need to save results or things like that because this is dynamic, it runs on the cloud, and you would have all preset already. That could be very convenient. Okay. Now, while this would be very convenient, typically is not that convenient if you only use one screen, which is what I'm doing now. So it looks a bit busy, isn't it? But again, to open your mind, let's say you have multiple monitors on your computer, and maybe one of your monitors is for going long, one of your monitors is for going short, and one of your monitors is for non-directional. So maybe you can have one matrix per monitor with this, the appropriate set of charts that you need for these type of trades in the same monitor together with the matrix related to that. In one monitor, I'm just gonna emulate and simulate that. So I'm just gonna open a chart where I'm gonna make that chart to float, and I'm gonna make it red color, okay? And I'm gonna put that on the left, okay? Then I'm gonna use one matrix. I'm gonna make it linked to the red color, and I'm gonna float it, okay? And I'm gonna push it to the right. And now that I've done that, I can now get my chart, and this would be monitor number 1, where I got my red matrix that goes with the red chart. I can do the same with blue matrix with the blue chart, yellow matrix with the yellow chart, whatever. And now when you click whatever, so that is changing that chart and not the other ones, and that way you can devote different monitors for different trading styles. But while you're using multiple monitors, multiple matrices, multiple charts, multiple everything, when you save the page, all of it is saved, including the location of where the various windows were in which monitor and how much space they used. So when you log in top again, let's say next trading day, everything would open in the appropriate space, okay, in the appropriate place, I meant to say. So just giving you ideas on how to be a bit more efficient. Okay, so that's why I will keep the save function for a future session at some moment in time, because again, by saving the page, you are saving the whole thing, right? So that is probably interesting. And by the way, the metric doesn't really utilize resources on your computer because, one more time, all of it is happening on the cloud. So you get all the updates, like every few seconds it will update while all the processing is happening on the cloud. So it does not consume internet bandwidth or computer CPU power or things like that. Cool. Okay, so just wanted to explain that, which may be known by some of you, but it's important stuff. So what else? So now that we know that we have the scans, that we have the basic filtering conditions, and then the additional filters. So I would like to start from the end to discover how to use the matrix. I'm gonna go for all stock symbols, meaning that I'm not gonna filter anything. We'll talk about the minimum price, the average volume. We'll talk about this in a different session as well. And what I would like to do today is I would like to focus on the additional filters. Why? Because in the end, every time you use the matrix, while some of the scan conditions you select are going to be critical, in the end, there will be some fine-tuning to be done with the additional filters, because if not, most of the times you will get too many results. Okay, too many results, because you got thousands of stocks in the US market. So normally you would get too many results, unless you are using maybe a weekly bullish candlestick, I don't know, a hammer on the weekly time frame. So maybe, well, still you got plenty. And that's a weekly time frame. So imagine if you are doing searches of this sort with a daily time frame, which is the time frame by default, by the way. So if you are doing searches using the daily time frame and you don't use the additional filters, typically you will end up with way too many results, and then it's not going to be helpful, because you would spend the whole day going from chart to chart, where the idea is to use the power of top to get rid of the opportunities which technically or potentially are less quality, and only populate the opportunities that are, based on your trading plan, higher quality. Okay, so I'm going to start with additional filters. My intention would be to cover that today. So in the future sessions, when we get into scans and other things, everything we are about to learn would be combinable with that, and therefore, I'm going to be able to be more specific, and also help you to get yourself more specific, to adapt your trading plans and rules to what the matrix can do for you. So when we click on this down arrow button to expand the additional filters, you end up finding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 tabs. Okay. If you were to compact this, you end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 conditions here, which I need to explain why is it that we got 8 instead of 7. Well, it's the same thing. It just happens that the Elliott wave turning points and the thumb strength levels, when you expand it, they happen to be in the same place. Okay, so in this particular tab number 4, you actually got 2 elements where if you were to compact the additional filters, they are now separated. So it gives you the function of being able to enable or disable certain of those additional filters without having to expand, which I guess is useful, especially if you're using, let's say you're on the go, you're using a laptop, maybe your laptop has a good resolution, but not not like a 4K monitor, for example, and saving that real estate space on the screen is actually useful. So that's why that was created this way. Okay. Now, what is inside each of those tabs? Okay, so you know what? Let's go from left to right. Okay, I think that's gonna be the best way to cover it. So when going from left to right, first we have a tab that allows you to filter based on stocks. And in this case, when you think of stocks, there are many ways to filter based on the characteristics of certain stocks. But here, what we're talking about is that we are talking about the concept of strength as well as the concept of rotation. In other words, what the matrix is trying to do here is, if I go back to top, the matrix is top, but like the view of top you are probably more used to, which is when I have the charts on the screen. You also know there is a tool called group, which this tool allows you to understand the US market, the sectors, the groups inside the sectors, and the stocks inside the groups. So what the matrix is doing here, thanks to that tab, it's basically kind of like compressing the functionality of the grouping tool in top inside the matrix, so you can filter based on that. So we will have a proper conversation about the group rotation tool, but again, basically, you have multiple things that could happen here. So you could be on the red, okay, and it could be deeper or less deep on the red, and you can see also that you have different intensities of red depending on where you're at on the red. You can also be on the blue, which you also have different intensities of the blue, and you can also be in a neutral place, which is when you got those kind of dots, right? So when you're in the red, it means down. I guess we all get it. When we are in the blue, it means up. I guess we all get it. And when you have the dots, it means it's neutral. But the importance of the dots is not the dot itself, is what happens after the dot. Okay, it's what happens after the dot. Because what happens after the dot, it's what in the platform will be identified as rotation. Okay, rotation, which is very interesting depending on your trading style. If you're building portfolios of stocks, again, depending on your trading plans or investing approaches as well, rotation is a very interesting concept because it tells you that a stock went from weak to strong or strong to weak in a way that is objective. And you could also compare that condition of switching from weak to strong or strong to weak. You can also compare that condition with each group as well, which the group itself also can go from strong to weak or weak to strong, or maybe you don't care about having gone through that switch. Maybe you only care about the fact that the group is strong or the group is weak, or the stock as well. So again, you have all those different possibilities. It's all about multiple combinations. So the combinations are, one more time, weak, strong, and neutral. Then you also have the condition of rotating up or down. And then you also have the fact that this is by default applied to a daily time frame, but you can also apply it to a weekly time frame. So the weekly time frame would be seen as the long trend or long term, if you wish, and the daily time frame would be seen as the medium trend or the medium term. Okay, so keep that in mind, because with that in mind, we are going back to the matrix. Okay, and notice how here you have the rotation or the strength that has to do with the stock itself, and the rotation and the strength that has to do with the group in which those stocks in our current list. Remember, it goes from top to bottom, right? So we are looking at all stocks. So we are not filtering at this moment in time. We take all stocks in the US market, and now we are going to apply an additional filter based on the stock itself or the group in which the stock lives. Okay, this is what this tab is all about. Okay, so I'm going to start with a basic filtering condition where I'm going to say, okay, I want the stock to be rotating from down to up in the last 3 days. So the stock is gaining strength, just changed from weak to strong, and that happened in 3 days or less. Okay, but also I want, in this case, the group where the stock lives to have done the same thing. In other words, if you were to do something like that, what you're kind of saying is that the stocks you are picking are kind of leaders of that industry, because as the group is rotating, the stock is rotating too. So they're kind of mimicking well what the industry is doing. So when you scan that, so of course the list is still going to be fairly long, but much less long than before. And again, if you were to look at that particular stock, actually I have not linked it, so let me link it to blue, since we got blue charts. So if I click on ACI, for example, okay, and now I go back to my charts. So here's ACI, and you can see how in the last few days it got stronger. If I was to add DT trend, okay, and I was to look at the stock, so you can see how it went from, in the last 3 days or less, it went from the dot, which is neutral, to strong. And if I was to look at the group, we should see the same thing happening, which the group was the last 2 days. So it seems that that stock is just a bit stronger than the group. So in the last 2 days, the group started switching from neutral to strong. In this case, doesn't need to be necessarily from weak to strong. It could be from neutral to strong as well, or neutral to weak, or strong to weak. Okay, so that's what I'm doing here, which again, based on your trading plan, could make a lot of sense. Some of you may be like, I want to make sure that stock is stronger than the group. So maybe one way to do it is, okay, so the rotation took place 2 days or less, and the stock rotated 5 days or less. Okay, so now you can play a little bit with that, and when you click scan, here are the results. Okay, I'm gonna pick another one randomly, AVA. So you can see where here in this case the group started rotating not too long ago. Okay, where the stock, okay, has rotated, well, actually on the same time. Okay, but again, it's 5 days or less. Okay, and there will be other cases. I'm not gonna search for more because I guess I made my point. I don't want to use too much time on that, but basically you got my point, where here it's 5 days or less and here's 2 days or less. So basically you're kind of pushing for the stock to have rotated, worst case the same as the sector, but best case sooner than the sector. So that would be a leading stock in that industry. So that could be one application of this particular check mark. Another useful indication is to look at medium trend or long trend for the stock, also compared to medium trend and longer term trend strength for the stock, for the group. Sorry for that. The bottom part is the group. So, I mean, a perfect group, you got the stock rotating, the group is rotating. On top of that, long term and mid term, the group is very strong, and long term and mid term, the stock is very strong. When you go that picky, often you get no results, because it's kind of like the perfect trade, and those tend to not to exist, or not too often. So maybe if you are a bit more relaxed with a group, okay, and now the group long term is strong, mid term is not, Okay, midterm is not, but long term is strong. And on top of that, the thing is just rotating now. Okay, the thing is just rotating. So you may be picking, a good, new impulse after a correction in some group which is strong. Which, by the way, you can see here the results. Oil and gas are in this case all the results we've got. Okay. Of course, the more check marks you select here, the less diversified you're going to be. In one hand, you are adding more odds to your trades, but in the other hand, you will have less trades and less diversified. So again, this is the magic of a good trading plan, where you find a good balance with the parameters you want to use, which have a lot to do with your trading mindset and trading goals and everything else. But again, sharing with you some of the rationale behind that. So let's say you wanted the rotation to be down, you can do the same. Okay, you can do the same. Okay, and just make sure that you rectify everything to be down. If you were to do the same, I'm not sure if we get results or not. No, we didn't. What if I look at strong down in the medium term? Okay, so again, as you can see, if you check mark too many, you may end up with no results. Actually, it may seem that we don't have any rotation to the downside in the last 5 days and 2 days. Yeah, actually, we only got 2, so that's why the list was very small, and that again was hotels and motels. Okay, so again, this is for you to experience with, but I guess that I made my point when it comes to the rationale on what this is doing. Also, we have a list of preset stock filters, which are quite handy, to be honest. Okay, we can first of all, from here you could reset. So let's say you have check marked in many places. Sometimes you want to reset, and it takes a lot of time to go and uncheck everything. So first of all, you can use that to reset and save yourself a little bit of time and get this back to standard. But also notice how there are a few filtering conditions here that are already set in a specific way, which could be handy. Okay, I'm not saying it's going to be exactly what your trading plan needs, but it could be handy. If you don't mind, I'll take a sip of water. For example, here we got a filtering condition that is looking for stocks rotating up in the last 3 days, which belong to sectors. Sorry, not sectors. Forget about it. I'm using the wrong example I wanted to use. It was the one above. Sorry for that. So stocks and groups are rotating at the same time in the last 3 days. That's the same thing I've done before, right? That's the one I wanted to mention. But notice how also we have a condition here where the continuous implied volatility for the calls is low. So by clicking here and scanning, automatically, notice how you get the check marks on up 3, but on top of that, the results, okay, are looking for low implied volatility calls. Nice one to have, even though you may be pickier when it comes to understanding of volatilities. Maybe, as you have seen me do in many other live sessions, you want to use some positive CIV spreads, some whatever. Again, we'll talk about the scans on the top more in depth. But again, those filters that we have here on the right may be a good starting point if you don't know where to go, because the issue with the matrix, if it's okay for me to use the word issue, is that it's such a complete tool that it may overwhelm you at first, and you're like, where do I start? Okay, so those preset filtering conditions may be handy for you to get started, start experiencing with the results you get, the length of the list, etc., etc. So that's kind of all I have for that particular tab with the stock filters. Unless you guys have questions or comments that you would like to add, I would love you guys to communicate with me now on the chat box and let me know. Even if all is good, just type a quick OK, as you know. But it would be important for me to hear from you before I go to the next tab, so I know it's all well understood. Let me know if that's the case. And while you are responding, I'm going to switch from all symbols, stock symbols, to option symbols, because the next tab I want to discuss is the options filters. Okay, and that tab, okay, that options filter tab would have no results. Okay, would have no results if you had used all stock symbols. Okay, the options filter tab would be empty because that's a tab that filters data related to options contracts, not data that filters, not a filter that looks at data from underlying symbols, which is what the scan number one is providing at this moment in time. Okay, so yeah, so I'm gonna switch. So we can actually use that section, okay? And I'll give you some applications on how we can use it. So Mark, why 90-day range here? Well, again, these preset stock filters, to be honest, they are very smart and very well set up. At the same time, if you are an advanced user of top, probably you end up set up your own criteria and choices. So the answer when it comes to why 90 days is because stocks report earnings every 3 months. So you would think of 90 days as, something relevant when it comes to understanding how high or low the continuous implied volatility goes from earning report to earning report. And basically that's the metric, okay? But of course, you could certainly look at this in different ways as well. As we discussed, scan number one, scan number two on the top, we'll have so many other ways on how to look at the implied volatility built in the options contracts, okay? But that's why 90 days, because it's kind of like a quarter, okay? Joe, all good. Thank you so much. Love the concept of multiple matrices. Yes, indeed. Christian, I do. I do as well. It really saves you huge amount of time. And it's kind of like dynamic. It's not only your ticker symbols are flashing, actually, if opportunities arise during the day. Maybe you have a very restrictive type of filtering condition that most of the times gives you zero symbols. But if the market goes crazy that day, for example, or something like that, now you see symbols pop up real time. So again, you may be able to spot opportunities and take advantage of them, most importantly, quickly, just because dynamically you have the matrix reporting results to you in front of you all the time in that, monitor number 3, for example, right? So again, I love it too. So next one, options filters. But as I said, to be able to go into options filters, I need to look at option symbols. So I'm moving to option symbols. And when I do that, the options filter section now is usable, and multiple possibilities appear of things that we could select. So again, what is this going to be useful for? Well, again, now we are talking about a list of millions of contracts. Okay, so we got a list of millions of contracts. So why would you load something which is millions if in the end you want to trade 1 or 2 contracts? So, well, the only reason to do that is so you use it as a starting base to filter out in a way that is very restrictive. So you end up with a short list of unique options conditions. Okay, so here we are looking for price anomalies. We're looking for crazy levels of premium. We are looking for something that goes beyond normality. Okay, you would, if not, it's better to, I would say, it's, simpler and makes more sense to filter using the underlying asset based on certain market conditions. Okay, and then go back to top, and then maybe you use the strategy builder, maybe you use the spread select, whatever it is, and this is going to build your options trade automatically, and you're done. Okay, so that's probably going to be a better choice. So when you are using the options filter, typically is because you want to go beyond picky. You want to look for those very, very extreme conditions on certain parameters that, given what you do when you trade, may give you a specific edge. Okay. So for this example, I'm going to pretend, and I believe this example will, basically take care of any other example too. But I'm going to pretend that your trading plan is a trading plan where basically you are a bull put trader. Okay, and bull put, bear call is kind of the same. So I'll demonstrate with bull put, but you could extrapolate these to many other things. So let's say you want to do bull puts, right? So, well, what is a bull put? Well, a bull put is a strategy where you basically collect premium, and as long as the stock didn't go against you by too much, so then you hit the expiration date, and then the whole premium collected is yours. And of course, you can then manage the trade. You can do millions of things, but let's keep it very simple. Let's say you are doing bull put spreads, and your trading plan is about, I sell the bull put spread, and I just wait all the way to expiration. And if I'm right, then I made that premium, and if not, I would lose whatever difference between strikes minus the credit collected. In other words, I want to collect as much credit as possible. I want to create. I want to collect like crazy amount of credit, because if I collect huge amount of credit and the option is placed very far from me, so that puts me in a position where, first, being so far away from me, that option is more likely based on probabilities, putting on the side the UFOs and everything else. That option is more likely going to expire out of the money, and therefore the premium will be mine. But on top of that, because the premium is so huge, so if I was to end up, being wrong and the market was to go against me, then the amount of loss I would lose, the amount of loss I would take would be not too great, because the premium collected was so great that it would have offset a lot of the distance between strikes, which is the risk in a bull put spread. So let's look for that. Okay, let's look for that. And I'm going to look for that instead of looking at underlying symbols. I'm going to look for that using option symbols. So if you're doing bull put spreads, you're using puts. So in this case, I'm going to look for puts only. You could do calls or both. And when it comes to moneyness, in this case, I'm going to be looking at out of the money options. That's what I'm going to be looking at, out of the money options. Because again, I'm putting myself in the shoes of a bull put trader who is selling puts out of the money. For sure, you can sell puts in the money. You can be more directional, different possibilities, but I'm just giving you one specific example, okay? So you would select puts, you would select out of the money. And, again, if I was to scan like this, okay, so this is going to give me plenty of puts, which there are many in the market. You can see the column CP, call put, is all puts now because I have selected put. But really, even though you can see figures here, I'm not filtering by anything yet because I have not checkmarked my apply advanced options filters. So now I have checkmarked it. And therefore now that's when I'm going to start getting very picky. Okay, so I want to start fresh. Okay, so we talk about the rationale behind certain decisions I'm going to take. And this hopefully will be useful. Okay, so first of all, let's say you want to do bull put spreads, but you don't want those bull put spreads to expire like 3 months from now. You want it to be kind of like short term. So maybe I'm going to use expiration dates anywhere between 1 day to 15 days to expiration, 1 to 2 weeks. Okay, notice that here we can see the stock A, right? And we got March 18, April 14, blah blah blah. So if I add this filter and I click scan, okay, notice that now I only got March 18, because any other expiration with this particular stock would not meet my criteria of 1 to 15 days. So I am now filtering. Notice that if I leave that unchecked, I guess it's obvious, but I just want you to see it because that's a typical mistake we receive sometimes. Support question is like, how come it's not filtering? Well, you forgot to check mark that guy. Okay, so now notice how I have March, April, May. If I check mark that guy, next thing you know, now the second filter is now acting and I only have March 18. Now, second, maybe when looking at those bull put spread, you are looking for probabilities of in the money to be maximum of very low, maybe maximum 5%. In other words, if I scan, okay, notice that, for example, A, the current price for A is $133.89. Okay, and notice how we are looking at the 110 put, the 115 put, and the 120 put. All of those, given the amount of time to expiration and the strike price compared to the distance to the stock, by applying the kind of like reverse engineering the binomial options pricing model, given its current implied volatility, you would have a probability of in the money of 5% or less, which in this case is 5%, in this case is 1%. So in other words, based on probabilities, raw probabilities, okay, which again, raw probabilities are that, right? You have 99% probability of, if you sell this option, you have 99% probability of selling it, okay? Collecting 65 cents, which is the amount of premium that was collected last time when that option was sold, and you have 99% probabilities of keeping that money, on March 18. Again, we don't trade based on probability of in the money only. Okay, you for sure would need UFOs in the chart and many more things to make the trade solid, but that's a good starting point that the probability of in the money is so low. Okay, and that's, I would look at this as a pretty extreme condition. Now, while this is pretty low, or I'm gonna go extreme, if you look at AA, you have a 0 something percent probability, but that option only pays you 1 cent. So why would you want to trade that? Well, the probability of in the money is very low. That pays too little. So maybe you would come in here and say, hey, I want this, but I want minimum $1.5 of premium, okay, on that one. And now you can scan, okay? And now you can see ACN, Adobe. You're like, okay, wait a minute, but those are $300 stocks. Okay, those are very expensive. $2,000 stocks, that's Amazon. Well, okay, so again, I'll talk about this more in depth in a different day, but you have the minimum price for the stock and the maximum price for the stock. So maybe you're going to tell me, look, my account allows me to trade stocks up to $150. More than that, it's a problem. I'm just making this up. So you click scan, okay, and now you are looking at $90 stocks where with a 1% probability of in the money, you would be paid 1.70. So out of curiosity, let's take a look at ARNA. Okay, and by the way, we're charting the option symbol. Okay, so let me look at the option stock. Okay, so this is where that stock is at. Okay, this is where that stock is at. Currently trading at 90 something, major huge open gap above. So maybe you are looking for UFOs, whatever. So there are a collection of UFOs, 58%. Actually, this may be a great setup to sell bull put spreads. Okay, the strike that seems to have this amount of premium is 90 is below 2 UFOs. So maybe you're like, okay, that sounds great. I'm just gonna sell the 90 bull put spread and have a third UFO there, and we just found a setup that actually looks pretty cool. But what about liquidity? Maybe you tell me that option has plenty of premium. What about the liquidity? What was the expiration? March 18. Okay, so March 18 for ARNA, and we are looking at the 90. So notice how you have open interest of 3,700 something, volume of 350 contracts, and actually the bid and the ask is 170 to 185. So you know what? It's not too bad. It's actually not too bad at all. Liquidity is 15 cents as the market is closed. So to be honest, Arena Pharmaceuticals is a stock I never traded myself before, but it's pretty decent when it comes to liquidity. Okay, while I'm sure that many other results on this list are gonna be very weak when it comes to liquidity. So maybe you want to come in here and add some condition for open interest. Okay, so maybe you want a minimum open interest of 1,000. And maybe you want a minimum average volume per day of 100. If we scan, what do we get now? Okay, and actually we get that one. That would be the only one. So, funny enough, that was the first one on the list. And of course, this is a pretty, again, given the fact that, crazy conditions will be fine in stocks, which typically are not the most common stocks, because the most common stocks are traded very heavily, and therefore conditions tends to balance out, and therefore they are less crazy compared to stocks that may be a bit less liquid. So again, my liquidity conditions here are pretty high, and that's why we only go one. But again, if maybe instead of 1,000 I was to do 500, and instead of 100 I was to do, let's say, 50. So I believe that probably the list is going to be just a little longer, not much more, but a little longer. Okay, yeah. So anyway, so now you got two stocks that you can go ahead and check. Okay, funnily enough, both got the 90 strike, both March 18, around 170. Okay, and again, that's a pretty extreme condition of premium. Okay, that you have right there. Then another interesting approach when looking for crazy situations could be that you guys look at the VIX. I thought I had it in the list, so let me type VIX. So when you look at the VIX here, VIX is currently 32. Okay, VIX is currently 32. So you may tell me, look, I want a minimum implied volatility of at least 3 times the VIX. So being 32, so that would be 96. So scan, okay, and DKS actually not only gives you the premium, but also has this greater implied volatility. Okay, greater implied volatility. Okay, so you are selling a very, very expensive option there, which is basically an extreme condition. And to find it, by the way, we had to scan among millions of options contracts. Okay, now these, when the market is open, will produce typically more results than when the market is closed. Um, because again, there are a lot of distortion in price as the market is closing, including the fact that many options contracts that maybe during the day got some juice, maybe as the market is closing, maybe some market makers are getting out of those contracts and bringing some of the juice out. So in this case, we ended up with one symbol only, which is the consequence of the market being closed and me being very extreme with the parameters. But again, one more time, I guess I made my point and you got me when it comes to the power of using this tool. If you are just looking for very, very powerful opportunities from what's available on the options contract from a price anomaly point of view, if you wish, and from there revalidate the trade using the underlying symbol of that stock as a confirmation instead of doing the analysis the opposite way, which is find a good underlying and then build an options trade that makes sense given the underlying. In this case, you are looking for some crazy situation from a premium point of view, and from there make sure that the chart allows you to take the trade, because of course if you have crazy premium and crazy everything but you don't have UFOs and everything else to support the trade, there may be a reason why there is crazy premium, which is that stock is just going to move crazy, and next thing you know, while the probability of in the money is 1% today, then tomorrow the probability of in the money, the stock has moved a lot, and next thing you know, the probability of in the money tomorrow is actually 75% instead of 1%. Right? Now, if you had UFOs, you had climate, you had Elliott waves, you had all of the various tools that we use on the underlying, this would help so much for those trades to have a higher probability of profitability while you found uniqueness on premiums that without a tool of this sort, there's no way you could find. Okay. Anyway, so let's continue with the next one. I'm kind of done with this, but again, I need some confirmation from you guys on the chat box. Please go for it. I'm going to take a sip of water as always while I'm waiting for you guys to type. If all is good, if all is understood, just type OK. If you have any particular comment or additional question, go for it, guys, before I move to the next tab. Christian, you love it? I love that you love it. Nice. Thank you, guys. Okay, so I'm gonna move to the next tab. Okay, and thank you, Mark. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everyone. So the next tab is about a scan list. Okay, and a scan list could serve you to do multiple things. Okay, so if I go back to the beginning of the session where we had all stock symbols, right? And I said you get results from here, you filter them out in a basic fashion using these, and you filter them again based on all those tabs, right? And then you get your results, okay? And this is how you shorten the list to find the quality you want when you trade and adapt to your trading plan. But while that's the case, and it should work very well, there may be some very unique demands that you may have on your trading plan that may or may not be possible to achieve when combining what we have on the screen. So maybe what you have to do is you have to do one set of filtering conditions. Maybe you do this, and then you do that, and then you do this and that and that and whatever. And now that you have filtered using all of that, you want to take that list of, in this case, 4 symbols, and you want to refilter that list based on something else in addition to what you have filtered already. So this is where you would go ahead and save the list, okay, which I will explain in a future session. You would save the list, and then you can go ahead and import a list that you have here, okay? And therefore you are forcing a collection of symbols into the system as you refilter them based on other parameters, those symbols are going to be the ones and only the ones you have selected. Okay, so that's the reason for that list. Okay, and you can use that to be that picky, or you can use that to be a bit more specific. For example, in my case, okay, and if you have been in the live sessions that I run, I very often import that list that I call the penny increment options list. So when I import that particular list, which is a list of 200 plus underlying symbols that you can see, okay, so that list is a list which, to be honest, I have not produced myself. It's a list which is being created and maintained by TD Ameritrade, Thinkorswim, if you wish, since like decades. Okay, it's absolutely not something new. And that list is a list of stocks which trade in pennies, meaning that when you look at an option chain, right, and you pick whatever, for example, options on the VIX, okay, so the bid price is 195, the ask price is 224. So when you trade, typically you try to go somewhere in between and get a good price somewhere in between. Now, many stocks can only allow you to vary your trading prices using 5 or 10 cents at a time. And out of the whole ecosystem in the US market with 9,000 over stocks, where I believe 6,000 plus are optionable, out of all that 6,000 plus ecosystem of stocks that are optionable, only 200 plus, close to 300, allow you to negotiate the bid-ask spread 1 cent at a time in pennies. So Thinkorswim / TD Ameritrade created that list and maintained that list long time ago. If you have their platform, you can actually download it from there. And what I do is I created a list. I generated a comma separated values file, which when I come here, I can import. Okay, it could be a text document or a list document. A list document is what you create here as a scan list. So again, I'll discuss that more in depth. It's basically a text file as well. You can import those documents here, and now when I filter, okay, so now I'm getting a reduced list. In this case, those are the stocks from $5 to $150 that are in my list. My list is close to 300, but if you filter based on price and liquidity and stocks, no ETFs, so you end up with a reduced list. So those are probably the most relevant, most common, most liquid stocks in the US market, even though it's not the case that all of them are the most relevant. There are stocks that are not in this list which are actually more liquid. Okay, and sometimes you find opportunities of stocks which are very liquid. You saw earlier ARNA, for example. You can see here, if I look at ARNA, well, actually ARNA is here. You know what? I did not remember that symbol. I thought it was not here. So ARNA is actually here, but I'm telling you that using other criteria without using the list, you would find so many more opportunities where sometimes they're going to be liquid enough. Okay, but by using this list that I have created for myself, I get the benefit of potentially liquid stocks and the benefit of being able to negotiate my entry and exit prices in pennies, which works well for me given my trading style, even though it's not necessarily needed. And you could certainly use that function for other applications which are in line with your trading plan. Maybe some of you are using TradeStation, for example, so you do an initial filtering condition maybe over the weekend. You filter certain stocks based on certain conditions. Using TradeStation, you come up with a list, and then you plug that list into top, and then you filter that list real time with other features. You could combine, this list coming from TOS, Thinkorswim, into top, another list coming from TradeStation into top, etc., etc., etc. Maybe you're subscribed to some website membership, I don't know, finviz.com, for example, and you get, some lists that you could filter out. Maybe you're looking for dividends, maybe you're looking for fundamental lists, something like that. So you can plug it in here and then do your second filtering condition. So this tab is indeed very useful even though it's crazy simple, but it's very useful in the sense that now you could combine top with other types of lists, with other type of platforms, other type of functionalities, including filtering and refiltering within top, by exporting your results, as I said, and then importing your initial results to be refiltered. And I'm looking at the time, and time flies. It's unbelievable, my friends. It seems that we're gonna have to call it a day here. But anyway, let me read your comments and questions there, and please let me know how is it going with the scan list as well. I would like to get your feedback from that tab. Christian, can I grab all semiconductor stocks, for example? Um, you could do that coming here, okay? Going to technology, picking semiconductors, and now when you filter out, so now you're only dealing with that particular group. You can do it here, okay? That's where you do it, okay? So the answer is yes. Yes, yes. So I'm just reading you now. So yes, the answer is yes. Now let's say you tell me, I would like to do it only with, instead of the whole semiconductor industry or group, I want to do it only with the stocks that belong to the ETF XLK, which is the technology ETF. Or maybe you want to do it with a semiconductor ETF, or maybe you want to do it with a basic material ETF. Maybe you are using an ETF as a measurement for a sector and you like that. So then no problem. Okay, and I will leave that as a homework for you guys. So you Google, for example, let's say XLK is the one you're looking for, the technology ETF. So you Google XLK holdings. You add the word holdings. So that will probably very likely bring you to the webpage of the company who has produced XLK. And you will be able to click in some sort of a section where you can get the holdings, which the holdings is who is part of XLK, meaning which stock symbols. And now you can download that list, and then you can import that list here. And now you have the very specific components of XLK as your condition. Okay. But if you are okay and happy, and by the way, I would do that. To me, it's totally in line with everything you do in top. When you are looking for groups, when you are filtering here, all of it is so much more compatible. So you just go to the drop down menu here, and that's it. It's all done for you in whatever sector you have the inner industries or groups, and you can just pick and you're done. Mark, Buffett criteria, stocks, dividends greater than 5%, etc. Yeah, dividends, it's something that is not available in the platform. Okay, so you will need to filter using, for example, websites such as finviz.com, get a list of stocks with their particular levels of dividends or any other fundamental factor, such as, the Warren Buffett criteria style and so on. You get that, you import that into top, and you do it. Okay, and again, it's a limitation with data feeds and stuff like that. You can even see that at other levels. Just to share, for example, if you get into a quote and you type, McDonald's, for example. So when you come in here, you can insert a field. Some of the fields that you can insert are, for example, dividend, EPS, PE ratio. So the platform is prepared for certain of those things, but the data feeds are not providing us with that information. And in that sense, so you cannot filter it because it's not in the platform. Okay, even though the platform is kind of ready, the data feed is not providing us. So you will need to do the filtering for those fundamental factors outside top, and then bring it inside top using the import feature as a scan list. Very good point. Yeah, and definitely very, very useful comments there. Cool, everybody. So, my friends, thank you so much for joining me today. We are done for today. We will continue in our next session during the week, trading session next week. And we will continue with top on our top session, the next one, which will happen, I believe, a little later in the month. You guys take care, my friends. It's good to spend time with you as always. It's always my pleasure. Keep up the good work. As you know, we're here to help. So any question you may have, email, question page, anything. The last thing you want to do is to stay isolated, with unanswered questions, make sure you connect. Again, we are here to help. There is no silly, simple question. There is no too much of an advanced question either. Go for it, guys. Let us help you in whatever your needs are. You guys take care. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, my friends. Bye.